Nah, nah. Y'all ain't about to slide this one past me. A United States fighter jet just got shot down over Iran. One pilot rescued, the other one missing. Could be captured, could be hurt, could be dead. And you know what Fox News got to say about it? They said the silence is a good thing. A good thing. Somebody's child is missing in enemy territory, and these people on television are telling you that's good news. I need y'all to watch this. Watch what they say, listen to every word, and then I'm going to tell you what they don't want you thinking about. Man.
Okay, and welcome back as we are learning one pilot has been rescued after a U.S. F-15E was shot down in southern Iran. We are still hoping and praying and waiting for good news on that second pilot. In the meantime, let's bring in Brent Sadler, a retired U.S. Navy captain and a former senior official at the Pentagon. Brent, great to have you with us again. Tell us what you know about this incident. What are you hearing from your sources?
Well, thanks for having me on this Good Friday. Not much more information. I think that's a good thing that's coming outside of the Pentagon or from CENTCOM on this, as we should expect the combat search operations are probably ongoing, looking for that second pilot. And hopefully we'll hear more in the coming hours. But I think it's also a reminder of how dangerous, even when you think you've secured the air, that there's always the danger there that someone could get lucky. There's a lot of new weapon systems that the Chinese and the Russians have tried to put into Iran since last summer. Let's hope we find out more about how we're doing on suppressing those capabilities as well.
And you were a senior official at the Pentagon, and I just wonder what would be happening at the Pentagon right now. What happens the moment they find out that a plane has gone down? Yeah. What is the process?
Well, they'll stay out of the operations, and I think that's a good thing. That'll be for CENTCOM and for the commanders on site to actually execute the operations to locate and then rescue, exfiltrate that second pilot, and if there's any sensitive wreckage, too, that they still want to try to get. It appears the Iranians are putting it on video, so that's probably not a likelihood, but getting that second pilot, that's the operational commanders in the region. The Pentagon will be answering questions for how does this impact the overall war effort? What does it indicate for change of tactics from the Iranians? Was there intelligence as well as capabilities provided by Moscow or Beijing that made this attack different from a lucky shot?
You know, Brent, no doubt the Iranians are feeling more emboldened now. They were able to shoot down a U.S. warplane. So do you expect that their tactics will become more aggressive now as they feel more emboldened about what they've done?
Well, if they're smart, they'll change, because if this was a one-off, we're going to be right on top of it. But clearly, after 13,000 plus sorties, this represents a 0.008 percentile of success rate on the Iranians. So if they had S-400s or S-300s that were operational from Russia or the latest from China, it hasn't really shown itself on the battlefield yet. And so that's a testament to the professionalism and the effectiveness of American weapons, but also the pilots that are operating these fighter aircraft and strike aircraft going into hostile airspace.
I've got to ask, Brent, if Tehran was able to capture a U.S. pilot, how would that shift what we're seeing at the moment? How would that shift what's happening next?
Well, I think the Iranians would be expected, as other regimes in the past, to try to use it for political purposes, to try more leverage here in the United States against the president's attack against the Iranians. And then, of course, it's a race. If the operations would wrap up in 2 weeks, would the Iranians be able to have any effectiveness in that, or in the negotiations, using, sadly, if the pilot remains or the pilot's alive, as some type of bargaining chip, like we've seen other Iranian proxies like Hamas do with the dead as well as hostages in Gaza?
Yeah, and we've already seen them using a lot of propaganda already using their state media to try and get these messages out. Brent Sadler, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Man, 63 years on this earth, and I ain't never heard nothing like that in my life. Did y'all hear that? Did y'all hear what that man just said on national television? He said, and I quote, "I think that's a good thing. A good thing. We got an American pilot missing in Iran right now. Missing. That means somebody's son, somebody's husband, somebody's father could be sitting in enemy hands right now. And this man in a suit on Fox News is sitting there comfortable, telling you it's a good thing that nobody's talking about it. Let that marinate for a second. Let that really sink in. I need everybody to understand what just happened here. This ain't just bad reporting. This ain't just spin. This is a man on television telling you that an American life, a military life, somebody who raised their right hand and swore to defend this country, that their disappearance is somehow good news. Because the Pentagon ain't talking. Because CENTCOM is quiet. And in his mind, silence equals everything is fine. Nah, where I come from, silence means something is wrong. Silence means they don't have answers yet. Silence means that family is sitting by the phone right now begging God for a call that ain't come yet. But here's the part that really got me. You hear him throw out that number? 13,000 sorties. And he said, hold on, let me get this right. He said this represents a 0.008 percentile success rate for the Iranians. Like it's a math problem. Like we talking about batting averages. Like that pilot is a statistic. Man, get out of here with that. That ain't a number. That's a person. That's a human being with a name and a family who signed up to serve this country. And you reducing their life to a decimal point on Fox News? Come on now. Come on. And I love how they frame this whole thing. You notice that? The whole segment ain't about the pilot. It ain't about getting that person home. It's about tactics, strategy, cat and mouse games, Chinese weapons, Russian weapons, S-300s and S-400s and HQ-9s. They talking about this like it's a video game, like they playing Risk on a board and somebody just lost a piece. But let me ask y'all something, and I need a real answer. What are we doing in Iran? 13,000 sorties. 13,000. That's a war, y'all. That is a full-scale military operation against a sovereign country. And when did Congress vote on this? When did the American people say yes? Go ahead, send our sons and daughters to fly combat missions over Iran. I must have missed that vote. I must have been asleep that day because I don't remember nobody asking us. And here's what kills me. This man, this retired Navy captain, this former Pentagon official, he's sitting there and he says, well, the Iranians either got lucky or they got new weapons from China and Russia. Got lucky? A surface-to-air missile that brought down the F-15 East Strike Eagle, one of the most advanced fighter jets on the planet, and you calling that lucky? That ain't luck. That's capability. That's what happens when you start a war with a country that's got friends. Friends with very big, very dangerous toys. But wait, because I ain't done. Did you catch the part about the Chinese and the Russians? He said this man admitted on live television that China might have given Iran hypersonic anti-ship cruise missiles, hypersonic, and advanced radar systems. And Russia been trying to get the S-400, their most advanced air defense system, into Iran. And nobody at that desk stopped and said, hold on, maybe we should ask why our enemies are arming Iran to the teeth right now. Maybe we should ask what we did to create this situation. Nah, they just kept it moving. Next question. Now I want y'all to do something for me. Close your eyes for a second. Imagine this exact scenario under Barack Obama. An American fighter jet shot down over Iran. A pilot missing, possibly captured by the enemy. You think Fox News would have a retired captain on there saying, I think the silence is a good thing? Man, they would have lost their minds. Sean Hannity would have done a 4-hour special. Lindsey Graham would have been on every channel screaming about failure of leadership. They would have called it the biggest military disaster since Benghazi. They would have had impeachment hearings before the sun went down. But it's not Obama, so it's a good thing. It's a statistic. It's 0.008%, and we move on. And that tells you everything you need to know about these people. This was never about the troops. It was always about the politics. And it gets worse. It always gets worse with these people. You hear the last part? The anchor asks, what happens if Iran captures this pilot? And what does the expert say? He says Tehran would use the pilot as a bargaining chip. A bargaining chip. An American soldier, somebody's child, reduced to a poker chip in a negotiation. And nobody at that desk said, well, maybe we should make sure we don't put our people in a position where they can become bargaining chips. Maybe we should ask if this whole operation is worth the risk of an American being paraded on Iranian state television. See, I'm old enough to remember. I remember 1979. I remember the hostage crisis, 444 days. I remember what that did to this country. I remember the families. I remember the yellow ribbons. I remember the shame. And now, 47 years later, we got Fox News experts sitting there calmly discussing the possibility of another American hostage in Iran like they ordering lunch. Oh, they might use him as a bargaining chip. Well, how about we don't give them a chip to bargain with? Now stay with me here, because this is where it gets real. They talking about all these weapon systems, S-300s, S-400s, HQ-9s, hypersonic missiles. But what does this actually mean for the people at home? For the woman working double shifts who's watching this on her break? For the brother driving his truck 14 hours wondering if his kid in the military is next? It means your tax dollars, your money, is funding a war that's getting more dangerous every single day. And when that pilot is sitting in an Iranian cell, God forbid, it ain't the Pentagon official who's gonna cry themselves to sleep. It ain't the Fox News anchor. It ain't the retired Navy captain. It's the mama, it's the wife, it's the children who don't understand why daddy ain't coming home. And that is what they should be talking about. Not success rates, not tactics, not cat and mouse games. The human cost, the real, actual flesh and blood cost of what's happening right now. And here come the part that's gonna make you wanna throw something. You know what question nobody asked in that entire 5-minute segment? Nobody asked, how do we end this? Not one person. They talked about what happens next tactically. They talked about Iranian air defenses. They talked about Chinese and Russian weapons. But nobody, not the anchor, not the expert, nobody said, how do we bring this to a close? How do we stop putting American pilots in harm's way? Because ending the war don't get ratings. Ending the war don't sell commercials. Ending the war don't keep you scared enough to keep watching. I'm tired, y'all. I am tired. I'm tired of watching these people on television play games with American lives. I'm tired of watching them reduce soldiers to statistics. I'm tired of hearing the word good next to missing. There ain't nothing good about a missing pilot. There ain't nothing good about a family not knowing. There ain't nothing good about any of this. And if you ain't mad about this, you ain't paying attention. This is what they do. They take something terrible and they wrap it in a flag and they tell you to be proud. They take a disaster and call it a success rate. They take a missing American and call it a good thing. And they counting on you to nod along and not ask the hard questions. Not Curtis, not today, not ever. That pilot, wherever they are right now, they deserve better than 0.008%. They deserve better than being a talking point between commercial breaks. They deserve to come home, and their family deserves answers, real answers, not silence that some man on Fox News decided is good. Share this video, because that family needs to know that somebody out here gives a damn, that not everybody is turning their child into a statistic. That's my take. That's straight talk. If you feel what I'm saying, subscribe, hit that bell, because tomorrow it's gonna be worse. I guarantee it. Drop a comment and tell me, does silence sound like good news to you? Because it sure don't sound good to me. That's straight talk. I'm Curtis Banks, and I ain't done talking. Not by a long shot.